My name is Emily, and I'm 36 years old, a third-grade teacher in a small town tucked beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. My days start early, around 5:30 a.m., when I brew a pot of coffee, pack a lunch, and get my 7-year-old son Caleb ready for school. Caleb is my everything. He's got his father's tousled brown hair and my hazel eyes, always sparkling when he talks about the lizards he saw on the playground or the new song he learned in music class. Teaching isn't glamorous. I spend my days corralling kids, grading papers, and staying late to plan lessons. But I love it, the way the kids' faces light up when they get something right, the way they find joy in the smallest things. It makes me feel like I'm doing something that matters. After school, I always try to pick Caleb up myself instead of letting him take the bus. When he runs to me, arms wide, waving a crumpled drawing or shouting about a new friend, that's when I feel most like a mom. My husband, Lucas, is 38 and works at a bank in Denver. He's gone a lot, sometimes for days at a time, chasing deals or meeting clients. Lucas used to be the kind of man who'd surprise me with wildflowers or make Caleb giggle with silly voices. But lately he's been distant. He comes home late, his eyes glued to his phone, barely noticing Caleb's chatter or my attempts at conversation. Sometimes I feel more like a housekeeper than a wife. My parents, Arthur and Margaret, live about a half-hour drive away in a cozy house on the edge of town. They're retired now, spending their days gardening or watching old westerns. I always thought they adored Caleb. They'd make him oatmeal cookies, put on his favorite cartoons, and listen to his endless stories about school. But recently, I've caught my mom looking at Caleb differently. Not cold exactly, but guarded. Like he's something she's afraid to get too close to. My older brother, Daniel, is 42 and a stockbroker in Denver. He's never married, has no kids, and loves to tease me about living like some old-fashioned homemaker. Daniel shows up to every family gathering, always in a sharp suit, tossing out stories about his business trips to Chicago or Tokyo, like they're no big deal. But 2 weeks ago, during a Sunday dinner at my parents' house, with Dad's famous pot roast steaming on the table, Daniel said something that stopped me cold. "Emily, have you ever thought about Caleb living somewhere like Denver? The private schools there are top-notch. He could stay with me for a bit, get a head start?" I stared at him, my fork frozen midair. "What are you talking about?" "He's 7, Daniel. I'm his mom." Daniel flashed a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just thinking about his future. You're swamped with teaching. Lucas is always on the road. I'm only trying to help." I didn't say anything back. But that night, as I lay next to Caleb while he slept, his little chest rising and falling, a strange unease settled over me. Lucas's late nights, my mom's odd glances, Daniel's words. They were like puzzle pieces, scattered and sharp, hinting at a picture I wasn't ready to see. The morning after Daniel's strange comment at dinner, I was brushing Caleb's hair in the bathroom, trying to tame his wild curls. He looked up at me, his hazel eyes wide and serious. "Mom, if I had to live somewhere else one day, would you be sad?" My heart stopped. I knelt down, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Who said anything about you living somewhere else, sweetheart?" He fidgeted with the hem of his shirt. "Grandma was talking to her friend at the library. She said I'd go to a faraway school and live with someone named D." He didn't finish the name, but I knew who it was. Daniel. I pulled him into a hug, his small frame warm against me, but my mind was racing. That question wasn't something a 7-year-old would dream up on his own. It felt like a crack in the foundation of everything I trusted. I didn't say anything to Caleb, just kissed his forehead and sent him to get his backpack. But as I watched him skip out of the room, a quiet dread took root. 3 days later, Lucas came home well after 10 p.m. I was at the kitchen table, the house dark except for a single lamp, the dinner I'd made sitting cold under plastic wrap. He walked in, hung his coat on the rack, and muttered the same tired line, "Sorry, client meeting ran late again." I didn't look up. I stood, reheated his plate, and set it in front of him, then sat back down. I wasn't avoiding a fight because I was afraid. Sometimes silence is the only way to catch what someone's trying to hide. Lucas ate without a word, his phone propped against the salt shaker, thumbs tapping out a message. At one point he angled the screen away, but not before I caught a glimpse of the name in the reflection of the glass cabinet door. Call me, Daniel. That name hit me like a slap. I couldn't be sure, but every instinct I had, as a mother, as a wife, screamed that something was wrong. I didn't confront him, not yet. The next day, when I picked Caleb up from school, his teacher, Miss Larson, pulled me aside, her face soft with concern. "Emily, Caleb's been a little off. He said he's having trouble sleeping. He told me someone said he might have to move away from you. Is everything okay at home?" I managed a tight smile, thanked her, and hurried Caleb to the car, my pulse hammering. I didn't tell Lucas about it. Instead, I called my mom that evening, pacing the living room while Caleb colored at the coffee table. "Mom, has Daniel been saying anything about Caleb lately?" There was a pause, long enough to make my stomach twist. "He's just been talking about what's best for him, Emily," she said finally. "He thinks Caleb could do better in a bigger city, with better schools. You know how Daniel is." "No one gets to talk about what's best for my son except me," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. Mom sighed, her tone heavy. "You're a good mom, Emily, but you're stretched thin. Lucas is always working. Daniel's just trying to help." That word help felt like a splinter under my skin. I hung up, my hands trembling. 2 days later, Daniel stopped by around noon. I'd just gotten back from school, and Lucas was off at another meeting. Daniel carried 2 takeout coffees and a shopping bag with a bright red tag. "Went on a little spree," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "Got Caleb a new jacket, thought he'd look sharp in navy blue." I didn't touch the coffee or the bag. I crossed my arms, meeting his eyes. "Daniel, what are you doing?" He blinked, then gave a light chuckle. "What? Just bringing my nephew a gift. And convincing everyone he'd be better off living with you, away from his own mother? Is that what this is?" Daniel set his coffee down harder than necessary, but his voice stayed smooth, almost too smooth. "You're overreacting, Emily. Do you have any idea how much pressure Lucas is under? Mom and Dad are worried about you too. We're all just thinking about what's best for Caleb. What's best for Caleb is staying with me." My words came out like steel. A crooked smile flickered across Daniel's face, one I didn't recognize. "If you think being a mom means you control everything, you're wrong. Kids aren't possessions." That night I couldn't sleep. Lucas was still out, and the house felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that amplifies every creak and shadow. I got up, restless, and started tidying the entryway. That's when I noticed Lucas's briefcase by the door, half open. Inside, tucked in a side pocket, was an unopened envelope from a law firm in Denver. My hands shook as I tore it open. The papers inside were about child custody consultation, including a draft agreement for temporary guardianship transfer. "Of Caleb?" I sank onto the couch, the papers crumpling in my grip. The house was so still I could hear my own heartbeat. One question burned in my mind. How were they planning to take my son away from me? Caleb was asleep upstairs, curled around his stuffed dinosaur, his face peaceful. But for the first time, I didn't feel safe in my own home. I wasn't just up against a misunderstanding, I was up against my own family. That Saturday, my mom called, her voice brimming with excitement. "Emily, we're planning a camping trip to San Juan National Forest this weekend. It's just a couple hours drive. We'll hike along a creek, maybe spot some deer. Caleb will have a blast." Before I could respond, she added, "Daniel's coming too. Your dad's already packed a picnic. Just get you and Caleb ready." I hesitated, a knot forming in my stomach. My family wasn't the outdoorsy type, and they rarely planned anything this last minute, especially in the chilly fall. But then Caleb overheard, bouncing onto the couch beside me. "Mom, can we go? I'll bring my binoculars to look for birds." His eyes were so bright, his grin so wide, I couldn't say no. I ruffled his hair and nodded, but the unease didn't fade. That night I told Lucas about the trip. He was at his desk, scrolling through his laptop and barely looked up. "I've got a client pitch on Saturday," he said, his voice flat. "Probably can't make it." I wasn't surprised. His meetings had become as predictable as the changing seasons. "Fine," I said. "I'll take Caleb. But Lucas, don't you think something feels off with everyone lately?" He paused, then shrugged. "You're overthinking it, Emily. A day in the woods might do you good." Saturday morning, I woke early, packing sandwiches, apples, water bottles, and a small first aid kit. Years of teaching had made me cautious. Bandages and antiseptic were non-negotiable. Caleb was buzzing with excitement, wearing his favorite red beanie and swinging his toy binoculars around his neck. My parents' car pulled up right on time. Dad was behind the wheel, Mom in the passenger seat, and Daniel in the back, leaving space for me. And Daniel was dressed in a sleek athletic outfit, complete with brand new hiking boots, which struck me as odd. I'd never seen him hike a day in his life. I didn't comment, just buckled Caleb in and kept my eyes sharp. The air was crisp, sunlight filtering through the trees as we drove. We reached a trailhead and started walking, the path winding through golden aspens. Eventually, Dad led us onto a narrow dirt trail that veered into a thinner stretch of forest. "This is a lesser-known route," he said, his tone casual. "The view's incredible." Something felt wrong. This wasn't the kind of trail we'd taken as kids, too remote, too unmarked. But Caleb was chattering beside me, pointing at every leaf. "Mom, look, that one's shaped like a star." I forced a smile, but my grip on his hand tightened. Daniel kept glancing at me over his sunglasses, and every time I caught him, he'd look away, pretending to check his phone. "Texting someone?" I asked, keeping my voice light. He hesitated, then smirked. "Just checking the weather, signal's spotty out here." Mom chimed in, her voice almost too cheerful. "This is going to be a day to remember, Emily, one you'll carry with you forever." Her smile didn't match her eyes, and a chill ran down my spine. Dad kept looking back at us, his gaze flickering between me, Caleb, and the path ahead. We stopped at a clearing near a steep drop-off. Beyond it, a valley of pines stretched out, flecked with bursts of red and orange. The breeze was gentle, the air clean, but my chest felt tight. Dad parked the car nearby and turned to us. "It's a short walk from here to a lookout point. Nobody in the family's seen it yet. The view's unreal." I slung my backpack over my shoulder, holding Caleb's hand as we followed. The trees grew denser, the path narrower. Daniel fell back to walk beside me and asked, out of nowhere, "Ever thought about sending Caleb to a boarding school?" I froze, my boots scuffing the dirt. That wasn't a casual question. "No," I said, my voice hard, "and I never will." He shrugged, his tone too smooth. "Some things you can't hold on to forever, Emily. Life moves fast." The words weren't threatening, but they made my skin crawl. Just then, Caleb darted ahead a few steps, then turned back, waving, "Mom, there's a high spot up there, you can see everything." Before I could call him back, Dad, Mom, and Daniel moved toward the edge of a rocky outcrop. I noticed they carried almost nothing. Just a couple of water bottles, no food, no maps, not even a flashlight. My heart started pounding. Then I saw Mom give Daniel a quick, sharp look, a signal. I slowed my steps, pulling Caleb closer. The valley spread out below, sunlight glinting off distant streams, but the beauty felt like a trap. Dad stood at the very edge, pointing. "See that, Emily? There's another ledge just past here. I went once. It's breathtaking." I nodded faintly, but my eyes were on Mom's hands clutching her nearly empty backpack. Daniel stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm. "Ever wonder if life could be simpler, Emily?" he said, his voice low. I turned, my eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't answer, just smiled, a smile that held no warmth. Then suddenly he grabbed my arm. I yanked back, pulling Caleb behind me. "Don't touch me, Daniel!" Emily, I just need to show you something, he said, his tone insistent. It'll only take a second. Before I could respond, Dad knelt down to Caleb. Hey, buddy, want to see something cool? Caleb grinned, oblivious. Grandpa, is it a hawk? Sure is, Dad said, scooping him up and walking toward the edge. It happened so fast, but to me it felt like the world slowed down. I screamed, "Stop, put him down," but before I could move, Mom shoved me from behind hard. The force sent me stumbling, my foot slipping on loose gravel. I flailed, grabbing at nothing until my fingers caught a jutting root near the cliff's edge. Daniel stepped closer, his face blank, his voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, Emily. This is the only way. It'll be quick. I scrambled to hold on, my eyes locked on Caleb, kicking in Dad's arms. Dad, let him go. He's your grandson. But Dad's face was calm, unnervingly so. It's better this way, he said. He won't feel a thing. Panic surged through me. This wasn't an accident. This was a plan, a cold, calculated plot with me and Caleb as the targets. In a split second, I lunged forward, throwing myself toward Caleb. My hands caught his legs and I pulled with every ounce of strength I had. Dad stumbled, losing his grip, and my momentum carried us over the edge. The world became a blur of wind and screams. I wrapped my arms around Caleb, curling my body around his like a shield. Mom, he cried, his voice piercing the roar in my ears. I didn't answer. I just held him tighter, praying my love could somehow soften the fall. We hit branches, scraped against rocks, pain exploding through my ribs, my legs, my skull. When we finally landed on soft earth at the bottom of the ravine, blood stung my eyes and my body screamed in agony. But Caleb was still in my arms, his small chest heaving. I whispered, my voice barely audible, "Caleb, are you okay?" "Mommy, I'm scared," he whimpered. I couldn't speak. Darkness clawed at the edges of my vision, but I fought it. I had to stay awake. I wasn't just a mother. I was Caleb's only lifeline. Pain seared through every inch of my body, pinning me to the damp earth. My left arm throbbed, useless, and my right leg felt like it was on fire. Blood trickled from a gash on my forehead, stinging my eyes, but I didn't care. Caleb was still in my arms, his small body trembling against my chest. His breath was shallow but steady, warm against my neck. That was all that mattered. He was alive. I forced my eyes open, wincing as the world swam into focus. Towering pines loomed above, their branches filtering pale sunlight. The air was eerily quiet, broken only by the distant chirp of a bird. "Caleb," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Are you okay, sweet?" He lifted his head, his face streaked with dirt and tears. "Mommy, are we going to die?" His voice was so small, it broke something inside me. "No," I said, shaking my head despite the pain shooting through my skull. "I'm right here, and we're going to make it." He buried his face in my shoulder, and I held him as tightly as my battered body allowed. We lay there for what felt like forever, the forest closing in around us, until I heard faint voices from above, drifting down from the cliff. "Do you see them?" It was my mom's voice, clipped and tense. "Nothing's moving," Dad replied, his tone flat, like he was commenting on the weather. "No one comes out this way. They're gone." "Good," Daniel said, a hint of relief in his voice, but also something unsteady, like he wasn't fully convinced. "Let's get out of here. If they're alive, they won't make it far." I pressed my hand over Caleb's mouth, my eyes pleading with him to stay silent. He nodded, his wide eyes locked on mine, and tucked his face into my jacket. I held my breath, my heart hammering as their footsteps crunched away, fading into the distance. When I was sure they were gone, I eased my hand off Caleb's mouth. He looked up, his voice a whisper. "Mom, what if they come back and see we're not dead? Should we pretend we are?" I stared at him, my chest aching. He was only 7, but he understood the danger in a way no child should. "You're so brave," I said softly. "Let's stay still a little longer, okay?" He nodded, curling closer, and we lay there, barely breathing, as the forest hummed around us. Time seemed to stop. The pain in my body was relentless, but something else was growing inside me. Anger. Not just at the fall, but at the betrayal. My parents, my brother, the man I'd vowed to love forever, they'd planned this, plotted to erase us like we were nothing. After what felt like an hour, Caleb lifted his head, his eyes red but clear. "Mom, I think I know why they did it." I blinked, my voice weak. "What do you mean, buddy?" "When I was playing hide-and-seek at Grandma's house, I hid in the shed. I heard Uncle Daniel talking to Dad on the phone. He said, 'It'll be over soon. We just need Emily to go on the camping trip.' Dad said, 'Stick to the plan. The insurance money's coming, and the other thing too.' I didn't tell you because I thought they were joking." My blood ran cold, like someone had poured ice down my spine. Insurance money, and something else. They hadn't just wanted us gone, they'd been counting on a payout, and maybe more. I hugged Caleb tighter, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You did nothing wrong, Caleb. You're so strong for telling me now. I'm so proud of you." I shifted, wincing, and checked my backpack. Most of our supplies had been lost in the fall, but I found a crumpled towel and half a bottle of water. I dabbed at a scrape on Caleb's cheek, then tried to assess my injuries. Moving my right leg sent a wave of pain so sharp I nearly blacked out. It was probably broken. My left arm was swollen, barely functional, but I had my right hand, my will. And Caleb, that had to be enough. I looked at him, his small face pale but determined. "I can't move fast, but you're quick. You could try to find the trail, but only if it's safe. Okay?" He shook his head, tears welling up. "No, I'm not leaving you, Mom." I managed a faint smile, my vision blurring from pain or tears I couldn't tell. "Then we'll go together. Step by step you'll help me and we'll get out of here." He nodded, his jaw set like a little soldier. I broke off a sturdy branch to use as a crutch, leaning on it and on Caleb as we started moving. Every step was torture, the ground uneven, the pain a constant scream in my bones. But Caleb's hand in mine kept me going. He whispered, "We're almost there, Mom," even when we both knew we were miles from safety. We stumbled through the forest for hours, the light fading as the afternoon wore on. My strength was slipping, the world tilting with every step. There were moments I wanted to collapse, to let the pain and exhaustion win. But then Caleb would squeeze my hand, his voice soft but fierce. "Keep going, Mom. We can do this." And I did. For him. By late afternoon, we reached a small clearing near a trickling stream. An older man with a gray beard was setting up a tent, his dog barking as we staggered into view. He dropped his gear and ran toward us. "My God, what happened?" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, my words a jumble. Caleb, clutching my hand, spoke for me. "My mom saved me. We fell, but she didn't let go." The man called for help on a satellite phone, his voice urgent. I don't remember much after that, just the sound of sirens growing louder, Caleb's hand still in mine, and the haze of pain pulling me under. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed, my right leg in a cast, my arm bandaged, and stitches crisscrossing my side. Caleb was curled up in a chair beside me, asleep, his face smudged with fading bruises but peaceful. A woman in a blazer sat nearby, her expression calm but serious. She introduced herself as Detective Lisa Harper from the Durango Police Department. "Emily, I need to ask you about what happened in the forest. Can you tell me everything?" I nodded, pain flaring with every breath, and started talking. The camping trip, Daniel's strange questions, the push, the fall. My voice was slow but steady. I wouldn't leave anything out. When I mentioned what Caleb overheard about the insurance money, Harper's pen paused, her eyes sharpening. "Your son told us the same thing." "He's sharp, Emily. We're already looking into your husband's financial records. And there's something you need to know." She opened a folder and slid a document toward me, a highlighted line catching my eye. 6 months ago, Lucas updated your life insurance policy. He increased it to $3,000,000, naming himself the sole beneficiary. The witness who signed the amendment? Your brother Daniel. My stomach dropped. $3 million. I looked at Caleb, still sleeping, and felt a cold resolve settle over me. They hadn't just tried to take my son. They'd tried to erase us both for money. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. My body ached under the weight of bandages and casts, but my mind was sharper than ever. Caleb slept in the chair beside me, his small hand resting on the edge of my bed. Detective Lisa Harper sat across from me, her notebook open, her face a mix of professionalism and quiet empathy. The revelation about the $3 million 0-cents insurance policy hung heavy in the air, but I could tell she wasn't done. "There's more, Emily," Harper said, her voice steady. "We've been digging deeper, and it's not just about the insurance." She pulled another document from her folder, this one older, the paper yellowed at the edges. "4 months ago, your mother made a wire transfer of $400,000, 0 cents, to Lucas. The memo read, 'Final payment for arrangements.' And we found encrypted messages between Daniel and your parents, going back nearly a year. They were planning something big, something that included you and Caleb disappearing." My breath caught, the room tilting. My own family, my parents, my brother, my husband, had been plotting our deaths for months. I gripped the bedsheet, trying to anchor myself. "Why?" I whispered. $3 million? That's enough to make them do this?" Harper's eyes softened, but her tone stayed firm. "It's not just the insurance. We found a record of a trust fund, established by your great-grandmother, Clara Wentworth. It's worth $10 million, 0 cents. And you're the sole beneficiary. The fund was set to transfer to you on your 37th birthday, next month. Your family knew about it. They've known for years." I stared at her, the words not fully sinking in. "A trust fund? I've never heard of this. No one ever told me." She nodded. "Your great-grandmother left strict instructions that the fund's existence be kept secret until you were of age to inherit. She wanted to protect you. But your parents and Daniel had access to the legal documents through an old family attorney. Lucas was brought in later, likely because he had the financial know-how to cover their tracks. They didn't just want the insurance money, Emily. They wanted the trust fund, and the only way to get it was to make sure you and Caleb, as your heir, were gone." The truth hit me like a tidal wave. My family hadn't just betrayed me for greed. They'd built their plan on a secret that tied back to someone who'd tried to protect me decades ago. My great-grandmother, a woman I barely remembered, had left me a legacy, and it had turned the people I loved into monsters. I looked at Caleb, his face peaceful in sleep, and a fierce resolve burned through me. They hadn't won. We were still here. Harper leaned forward. "We issued warrants for Lucas and Daniel right after your statement. Your parents are under investigation, but when we went to pick up Lucas and Daniel, they were gone. Lucas's car was found abandoned near a private airstrip. We think they suspected we were closing in." My stomach twisted. "Will you find them?" "We've escalated this to a federal level," she said, her voice unwavering. "For now, we're recommending you and Caleb enter protective custody until we're sure you're safe." I nodded, my eyes on Caleb. He was the reason I'd fought to survive, and I'd keep fighting, no matter what it took. 3 days later, we were moved to a secure facility, with officers stationed outside. Caleb stayed close, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, but he didn't cry. He was stronger than I'd ever imagined. When Harper visited again, her expression was grimmer, her folder thicker. "We got a break," she said. "A highway camera caught Daniel crossing into New Mexico, likely heading for the border. Lucas is using an alias, Mark Thompson. But we traced a canceled flight booked under that name. He's still in the country and we're closing in." She flipped to a new page. "We also recovered Lucas's old phone from his car. It had deleted texts between him and Daniel, outlining the plan. One message from Daniel said, 'Once Emily's gone, the trust fund's ours. The kid can't inherit if he's not around.' Your parents were copied on some of these. It's airtight evidence. I felt sick, but I didn't look away. What about my parents? They've been subpoenaed, Harper said. We found a recorded call where your mother discussed splitting the trust fund with Daniel. They're not getting away with this. A week later, the police caught up with Lucas in a rundown motel in Arizona. He'd been trying to destroy evidence, burning papers, wiping his laptop, but they arrested him mid-act. Daniel was picked up hours later at a gas station, caught on camera trying to buy a burner phone. My parents were detained at their home, their faces blank when the officers read their charges. 8 months after the fall, the trial began in a Durango courthouse. I was still in a wheelchair, my arm braced, my legs slow to heal. Caleb sat beside me, holding my hand, wearing a green sweater he'd picked because it was my favorite color. I testified on the second day, my voice steady as I recounted every detail, the camping trip, the push, the betrayal. I looked at Lucas, his face blank in his gray suit, and said, "You thought you could trade us for money. You were wrong." Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. My parents kept their heads down, just like they had my whole life, when they didn't want to face me. Caleb's testimony was recorded to protect him, his small voice clear through the courtroom speakers. I heard Uncle Daniel say Mommy and I wouldn't be here if the plan worked. I was scared, but Mommy kept me safe. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, the insurance policy, the trust fund, the texts, the wire transfers. Lucas and Daniel were sentenced to 25 years for attempted murder and conspiracy. My parents got 15 years for their role in the plot and child endangerment. When the gavel struck, I didn't cry or cheer. I just exhaled, a weight lifting I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Justice had named the people who'd once called me daughter, sister. After the trial, Caleb and I didn't go back to our old house in Colorado. The police advised staying in witness protection until all threats were cleared, but I wanted more than safety. I wanted a fresh start, a place where the shadows of my family couldn't follow. With help from my attorney and a support group for survivors of domestic abuse, I reconnected with an old high school friend, Rachel, who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. When I told her what happened, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come to Montana. My home's yours for as long as you need." We arrived in Willow Creek, Montana on a crisp spring morning. The town was small, nestled in a valley where snow still clung to the hills, but green shoots were already pushing through the earth. Rachel lived with her husband and 2 kids in a cabin just outside town, surrounded by pines and open sky. For the first time in months, I watched Caleb sleep through the night, his face relaxed, no nightmares pulling him awake. I found part-time work at the town's library, shelving books and helping with children's reading programs. The head librarian, Mrs. Dorothy, was a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes. On my first day, she looked at me for a long moment and said, "I don't know your story, Emily, but I see the strength in you. That's what this place needs. You've got a job if you want it." I nodded, gratitude choking my words. The quiet rhythm of the library, rustling pages, the smell of old books, the soft hum of voices, gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. Caleb started at a small elementary school a mile from Rachel's house. At first, he was quiet, sticking to the edges of the playground, watching other kids from a distance. But a few weeks in, his teacher called me. "Emily, today Caleb drew a picture of his family. It was him and a woman standing under a big yellow sun. He said, 'That's me and my mom, because we made it through the dark.'" I held the phone, my eyes stinging, and managed a shaky, "Thank you." That drawing was proof. Caleb was finding his way back to being a kid again. We started seeing a therapist, Dr. Laura Bennett, who specialized in trauma. She never pushed Caleb to talk. Instead, she let him build castles in a sandbox or draw his dreams in crayon. With me, she was gentle but direct. "Don't rush to forgive," she said. "Focus on what kept you alive, your love for Caleb." Week by week, I saw Caleb's smile return. He'd come home with stories about a kid named Tim who tripped over a soccer ball, or how the teacher did a goofy voice for story time. Small things, but to me, they were everything. One Friday evening, I was chopping vegetables with Rachel in her warm kitchen when Caleb burst in, cheeks pink from running in the wind. "Mom, we're going on a field trip to the river tomorrow. The teacher said you can come." I looked at him, and for a split second, I was back in that forest, my hands bloodied, my body broken, never letting go of my son. I smiled. "Of course, buddy, you and me, always together." That night, after Caleb was asleep, I stepped onto Rachel's porch, leaning against the railing, staring at a sky bursting with stars. I thought about what I'd lost. Parents who'd never really known me, a brother who'd chosen greed, a marriage that had crumbled long before the fall. But then I thought about what I had, a brave little boy, a friend who'd opened her home, a chance to start over. For the first time in years, I felt light, like I could breathe without carrying the weight of betrayal. A few months later, I met Michael, a local journalist who wrote for the town paper. He was at a parent-teacher night there to cover a school art show. He was tall, with a quiet laugh and glasses that slipped down his nose. Caleb's painting, a messy rainbow over a mountain, caught his eye, and he asked me about it. I told him Caleb loved colors, and somehow we ended up talking for an hour about books, small towns, and why Montana felt like a secret worth keeping. Michael never pried about the scars on my arm or why Caleb sometimes flinched at loud noises. He just listened, and when I needed silence, he let it be. Caleb's 8th birthday came on a sunny June day. I planned a small party in Rachel's backyard, balloons, cupcakes, a few of Caleb's classmates. But Rachel had secretly invited half the town. Library coworkers, Caleb's teachers, even Michael. Caleb wore a blue shirt he said looked like the sky when I hugged him at dawn. He ran through the yard laughing as kids chased him with water guns, his joy brighter than the sun. I watched from the porch as Michael knelt to help Caleb tie a loose shoelace, both of them grinning. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. After the party, Michael stayed to help clean up. As I stacked plates in the sink, he handed me a small envelope. "From the school," he said. "They do this for kids who've had a tough time. Just a library card and some museum passes." I took it, my throat tight. He paused, then looked at me, his eyes steady. "Emily, I don't know what brought you here, but you and Caleb, you've made this town better. You're stronger than you know." I didn't speak, just held the envelope, my fingers tracing its edge. "Do you think family is something we can choose?" I asked. "Not just what we're born into?" Michael didn't answer right away, but the warmth in his gaze said more than words ever could. That night, as I tucked Caleb into bed, he grabbed my hand. "Mom, can I call Michael my friend? He's nice, like he belongs with us." I smiled, brushing his hair back. "You can call him whatever feels right, sweetheart, as long as you're happy." I stood by his window, watching fireflies blink in the dark. My great-grandmother's trust fund was released to me after the trial. $10 million, 0 cents, I never expected. I decided to use it to fund a shelter for survivors of family violence, a place where others could find the safety Caleb and I had fought for. It felt like a way to honor the woman who'd tried to protect me, even from beyond the grave. Caleb and I had lost everything, our home, our family, our trust, but we'd found something better, a community that chose us, a life built on love, not blood. What do you think family really means? Is it the people we're born to, or the ones who stay when the world falls apart? Share your thoughts below and follow for more stories of resilience and hope.